Hi, and welcome to the Trumpet Maintenance and Instrument Care video. Before you open your trumpet case, we want to make sure that the case is facing up the correct direction. The way you can check that is that your case latches, when you undo them, some of them you have these flip style that come down and the case opens up. Some of you will have a different latch style where the latch just opens up. So make sure you always know which direction is up before you open your case so your instrument doesn't fall out and get broken. Open up your case and take out your valve oil. The valve oil brand that I would like you to use is called Blue Juice. It looks like this. Blue Juice has a special astringent in it that helps clear out all of that green and blue gunk that tends to grow in our instruments. I used to let my students use other types of valve oil, and then when I heard about Blue Juice from a repairman for our district, I had my students switch to it, and all that green and blue stuff disappeared. It also works very good here in the desert. Not all valve oils are formulated the same, obviously, and so I think you will be very, very happy with how this one performs. Your valves will move much, much more freely so that you don't have any issues. When you take out your valves, we only want to take out one at a time. They look like they're the same, but they're not, so if you get them mixed up, it can take a while for me to help you figure out which one goes in which slot. So we only do one at a time. When you take out your valve, we turn from this middle section right here that's just above the tubing. We don't turn from the top because that's just going to take off the top jeweled part of your valve. Loosen and pull out the valve. Put about 3 drops on the flat parts of your valve and then insert it back in. Grabbing from the top jewel, gently twist until you feel the valve lock into place. Inside of your valve, outside of the valve casing, you can't quite see it in here, but on this trumpet, my valve track is on the left side of my trumpet. It looks like a little groove. And on your valve, you will have a valve guide. It's a little part that sticks out. Each trumpet is different. Some of them have 2 valve guides and 2 valve tracks, so you have to make sure. Usually one is wide and one is skinny, and align them. Some of them still only have 1 track inside but 2 valve guides, and so again, you're just going to make sure that you line them up properly. You'll know if you have it in place because once you turn it from the jewel and it falls into place, it won't turn anymore. Double check that it is properly in place by blowing into your trumpet. If it's not in place, you're going to have a lot of resistance and your cheeks will puff out. If it's in the proper place, it'll blow through freely. Align and tighten. If it's not aligned properly, it'll be sitting a little bit crooked and it'll do what we call cross threading, and you can actually ruin it and have to get that part of your trumpet replaced. So if it only goes down a couple turns and it stops, you know that you have it wrong. Loosen it and make sure that everything's lined properly. After everything's tightened up again, work the oil in and then move down the trumpet and do your other valves. Again, we only want to do one at a time so that we don't mix up the different valves. You will need to oil your valves at least twice per week. If you're a junior high student, you're going to find that you're going to need to oil your valves pretty much every day or every other day that you play. If you don't oil your valves properly and do it as often as you're supposed to, the metal grinds on the metal and you will permanently destroy your instrument. So please make sure you do this on a regular basis. If you're playing your trumpet and your valves are moving really slowly, you know that you are long overdue for oiling. The next thing you have to do is grease your tuning slides. This is something that needs to be done maybe about once a month, maybe just a little bit more often. You're going to pull out your tuning slides. You can pull them all out at once because they won't get mixed up, but I personally like to do them just one at a time because Otherwise the grease that's on them gets on whatever you're placing it down on and kind of gets a little bit messy. You're going to get a cleaning rag. You can either, this is just a shop towel that a mechanic would use. You can have an old t-shirt that you've cut a square out of, an old sock. The music stores sell cleaning rags. You don't have to use one of those. Definitely don't use one of the polishing cloths because that's not what this is intended for. You're going to wipe off all of the old grease and you will see all kinds of gross black and green and brown yucky stuff, which is why we wipe it off, because we don't want to leave that on our instrument. And then you're going to get your tuning slide grease. I like the Super Slick brand because it's a little bit more thin. If your tuning slides aren't completely aligned properly, if they fit a little bit more stiff in your instrument, this will still work. If your grease is too thick, it can make things hard to move still, even though they're greased properly. This one's just a little bit more thin. It's not too thin, it's not too thick. When you put your slides back in, we wipe all the grease onto, we're going to do one at a time and move it in and out just a little bit to make sure that that grease gets worked in and is easier to insert when we put in both slides at the same time. You'll notice that on your main tuning slide, the big one end is longer than the other. So obviously that long end is going to go in first, and then we're going to guide the short end in. You want to make sure that when we're inserting this back into the trumpet, that nothing is at an angle, either this way, or even this way, or this way, because otherwise you're going to bend and break something. If it's not working easily for you, stop and ask an adult for help. Sometimes it just requires a little bit of finagling to get it to move into place. Once you insert it, you might notice that there's some extra grease that will gush out. That's fine. Just take your cleaning cloth and wipe it off. A little bit is natural to come out. If it's a lot, you know that you use too much, and just use less product next time. Finally, your tuning slides are not meant to be pushed in all the way. So pull it out about 1/4 of an inch. On trumpet, we have 4 tuning slides. Our big main one near the bell, our 3rd ring slide that is near the end. We have the 2nd tuning slide, which can sometimes be hard to remove. If it's difficult for you to remove, I put a piece of string or a shoelace, something that's a little bit thicker, through that little loop there, and pull gently. If it does not come out easily, don't mess with it anymore, because you can break that tuning slide into pieces. I will help you remove it. The 4th tuning slide is back here. It's the 1st valve tuning slide near the lead pipe of our trumpet. Again, you want to grease your tuning slides 1, possibly 2 times per month. The final bit of maintenance that you will need to do to your trumpet is to clean out your mouthpiece. If you look inside of your mouthpiece, you'll notice that it probably looks a little grimy and disgusting. So this is what your mouthpiece cleaner is for. You're going to use some warm water, warm enough that it doesn't burn your hands, because if you use warm water that is too hot, it will take the plating, the silver plating, off of your instrument or off of your mouthpiece, and that's not good for it. You're going to use a little bit of soap, and the soap that you want to use is Dawn, the liquid dish soap. Put a little bit of soap, some water, run it under a sink, and insert at the shank end, and then just a little bit into the cup of the mouthpiece. It will not go all the way in. It's barely going to insert there, okay? You want to do this a couple times a month too, especially if you have band right after lunch. It's going to get super, super disgusting from all the particles that are in your mouth. That's everything for trumpet maintenance.